The cold empty space between stars held many secrets, but Station Eco 7 looked like it held none at all. The mining outpost floated alone in the darkness, surrounded by broken asteroids and space rocks that had been dead for millions of years. Nobody from Earth cared about this place anymore. It was too far away and too small to matter. Kim Day sat in the control room watching the same boring screens he watched every night for the past 2 years. The scanner showed nothing but empty space and floating rocks. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept drinking it anyway because there was nothing else to do. The night shift was always quiet, but tonight felt different. Somehow he could not explain why the station looked terrible from the outside. Old metal plates covered in rust and space dust held the structure together. Half the lights did not work, and the other half flickered like dying candles. The communication dish was bent from a meteor strike last month, and nobody had bothered to fix it. Earth Command had stopped sending repair ships. Years ago inside the station, 12 people lived and worked like they were forgotten by the rest of humanity. Dr. Park Soo-jin spent most of her time in the science lab studying the weird rocks and crystals the mining robots brought back from the asteroids. She was a small, quiet woman who loved her work more than talking to people. The other crew members joked that she talked to rocks because rocks were better listeners than humans. Captain Lee Won managed the station with tired eyes and a heavy heart. He had been requesting a transfer for 3 years, but Earth Command kept saying maybe next year. The supply ships came less often now and brought less food and equipment. Each time, Won often wondered if anyone would notice if they all just disappeared into the black space around them. Engineer Nam Hoseok fixed the machines that kept them alive. He was good at his job, but even he could not fix everything. The heating system made strange noises. The air recycler smelled funny. The artificial gravity flickered, sometimes making everyone float for a few seconds. These were problems that needed new parts, but new parts cost money, and Eco 7 was not worth the money anymore. The mining robots worked day and night pulling rare metals from the dead asteroids. The metals were valuable, but not valuable enough to make Earth Command rich. The station existed because it was already here, not because anyone wanted it to be here. It was like an old dog that nobody wanted to put down, but nobody wanted to feed either. Kim Day was 25 years old and looked like any other soldier who had been stuck in space too long. He was thin from eating recycled food and pale from never seeing real sunlight. His hair was black and messy because there was no point in keeping it neat. His uniform was clean but faded from too many washings and recycled water. What nobody knew about Kim Day was that he was not really a regular soldier before coming to Eco 7. He had been part of something called the Ghost Protocol. It was Earth's most secret military program that trained people to fight impossible battles and win against terrible odds. The training had been so secret that even Kim Day did not talk about it. The Ghost Protocol had taught him to fight in the dark, to move without making sound, and to turn any place into a weapon. His quiet behavior and bored expression were not real. They were a mask that hid a warrior who could kill with his bare hands or turn a coffee cup into something deadly. Kim Day had been sent to Eco 7 for a reason, but even he did not know what that reason was. Dr. Park Soo-jin made another discovery in her lab that night. She found a crystal inside an asteroid that glowed with its own light. The crystal was unlike anything in her textbooks. It seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, and when she touched it, she felt a strange warmth spread through her fingers. The crystal was beautiful, but also somehow alive. The crystal reacted to her emotions. When she felt excited about her discovery, it glowed brighter. When she felt sad about being so far from home, it dimmed. The other crystals in her lab started to glow too, as if they were talking to each other in a language made of light. Park Soo-jin had never seen anything like this before. Captain Lee Won walked through the station checking on his crew like he did every night. The corridors were narrow and dark with pipes and wires running along the walls. The floors were metal grating that made noise when you walked on them. Everything smelled like machine oil and recycled air. It was not a nice place to live, but it was home. The communication system crackled with static from distant stars. Sometimes Wang could hear faint signals from other human colonies, but they were too far away to talk to. Eco 7 was truly alone in the universe. The nearest Earth fleet was 3 weeks away by the fastest ship, and Nobody was coming to visit them any time soon. Hoseok worked in the engine room, keeping the old machines running. The fusion reactor that powered the station was older than he was and held together with spare parts and hoped the life support. Systems worked, but just barely. If anything important broke, they would all die before help could reach them. The mining crew worked in shifts, pulling valuable metals from the asteroid field. The work was dangerous because space wanted to kill them. In 100 different ways, radiation from distant stars could cook them alive. A small hole in a spacesuit could suck out their blood and air. The asteroids themselves could crush them if they were not careful. Kim Dae finished his coffee and stood up to stretch his legs. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They were beautiful, but cold, like diamonds scattered on black cloth. He wondered if anyone on Earth remembered that 12 people lived out here in the darkness. He wondered if anyone would care if they all died tomorrow. The station's computer beeped softly as it ran its automatic systems. The air recycler hummed in the walls. The artificial gravity generator made a low, thrumming sound that vibrated through the floor. These were the sounds of life continuing in a place where life should not exist, the sounds of humans refusing to give up even when they were forgotten. Dr. Park Soo-jin worked late into the night studying her glowing crystals. She took readings and made notes, but the crystals seemed to change every time she looked at them. They were beautiful and mysterious and somehow important. She felt like they were trying to tell her something, but she could not understand their message. Kim Dae returned to his control room and sat down at his desk. The screens showed the same empty space they always showed, but tonight something felt different. He could not see anything wrong, but his instincts told him that change was coming. His ghost protocol training had taught him to trust his instincts because they could save his life. Far away in the darkness, something was indeed coming. The Krell Empire had been expanding across this part of the galaxy for years, taking over weak human colonies and enslaving or killing everyone they found. Their ships were big and powerful, and their weapons could destroy planets. The Krell thought all humans were weak and easy to defeat. Commander Vexstar looked at the readings for Station Eco 7 and smiled. With his sharp teeth, the station was small and poorly defended with only 12 humans and basic weapons. It would be easy to capture, and the humans would make good slaves. The Krell needed workers for their mining operations on conquered worlds. The alien fleet moved through space like hungry sharks looking for prey. They had destroyed dozens of human settlements and never lost a single battle. The Krell were bigger and stronger than humans, with thick armor-like skin and multiple arms they believed might made right, and the strongest should rule everyone else. But Commander Vexstar did not know about Kim Dae. He did not know about the Ghost Protocol or the warrior hidden behind the mask of a bored soldier. He did not know about the glowing crystals that Dr. Park Soo-jin had discovered or the ancient secrets sleeping beneath the asteroid field. The Krell were about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. Kim Dae felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at the empty scanner screen. Something was out there in the darkness, something that meant harm to his people. The quiet soldier who had been counting days until his transfer was about to become something much more dangerous. The guardian of Earth's forgotten outpost was about to wake up. The night shift continued as it always did, but tonight would be the last normal night for Station Eco 7. By tomorrow, everything would change. The 12 forgotten humans were about to discover that they were not as alone or as helpless as they thought. The universe was about to learn why humanity had survived every threat it had ever faced. In the depths of space, ancient powers stirred in response to the approaching danger. The crystals glowed brighter, as if sensing the need for protection. The asteroid field itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when peace would end and war would begin. The Forgotten Station was about to become the most important place in the galaxy. The Krell boarding pods hit Station Eco 7, like metal fists punching through paper. The alien ships had appeared without warning, filling the scanner screens with hostile red dots. Commander Vexstar smiled as his warriors cut through the stations. Weak hull, they moved fast and confident, expecting scared humans to surrender quickly. Kim Dae watched them come through the security cameras. His finger hovered over the alarm button, but he did not press it, yet the Ghost Protocol had taught him to let enemies get close before striking. He counted 50 Krell soldiers pouring into the outer corridors. Their thick armor gleamed under the emergency lights, and their weapons could burn through steel the boarding pods attached to the station. With loud banging sounds that echoed through the metal walls, Captain Li Wan ran to the control room shouting orders, but Kim Dae was already moving. His boring night shift personality disappeared like smoke. The warrior underneath was finally waking. Up Dr. Park Soo-jin heard the noise from her lab and grabbed her research data. The crystals on her desk were glowing brighter than ever, pulsing with angry red light. They seemed to know that danger was coming. The computer screens in her lab flickered and showed strange symbols she had never seen before. The mining crew ran to the safe room like they had practiced many times. Engineer Nam Hoseo carried his toolbox because his wrench was the only weapon he had. The room was small and cramped. With thick walls designed to protect them from asteroid impacts, it felt like a tomb waiting to be sealed. Kim Dae activated hidden systems throughout the station, systems that nobody else knew existed. The Ghost Protocol had prepared Eco 7 for this day, turning the simple mining outpost into a trap waiting to spring. The station's computer network came alive with new programs that had been sleeping for years. The Krell soldiers moved through the corridors expecting to find cowering humans hiding in corners. Instead, they found empty hallways and strange noises coming from the walls. The station's layout seemed different than their intelligence reports had shown. Doors open to rooms that should not exist, and familiar passages led to dead ends. Commander Vexstar watched from his flagship as his troops reported confused messages. The humans were not surrendering, and his soldiers were having trouble finding them. The station seemed to be fighting back somehow, which was impossible for such a small outpost. Kim Dae moved through maintenance shafts like a ghost. The narrow spaces between the walls were his domain. Now he could travel anywhere in the station without being seen. The Krell soldiers were big and strong, but they could not follow him into spaces designed for human bodies. The first group of alien warriors reached the control room, expecting to capture the station's command center. Instead, they found empty chairs and flickering screens. Before they could react, the lights went out. Kim Dae had cut the main power from a hidden panel 3 levels below. In the darkness, the Krell soldiers became confused and scared. Their night vision was good, but not perfect. Kim Dae moved among them like death itself. His ghost protocol training let him fight without seeing, using sound and vibration to locate his enemies. The aliens never saw him coming. The heavy armor that protected the Krell from bullets became a weakness. In the narrow station corridors, they moved slowly and made noise with every step. Kim Dae was fast and silent, striking from shadows before vanishing again. His attacks were precise, targeting weak points in their armor and equipment. Dr. Park Soo-jin watched her crystals change color from red to blue to white. The computer screens showed her things she did not understand. Energy readings that made no sense and symbols that looked like they belonged to a much older civilization. The crystals were trying to tell her something important. The second wave of Krell boarders met the same fate as the first. Kim Dae had turned the mining station into a maze of death. Every corridor became a trap, every room a potential ambush. The station's artificial gravity flickered on and off, sending floating aliens spinning helplessly through the air. Engineer Nam Hoseok listened to the battle sounds echoing through the walls. The ventilation system carried strange noises and alien screams. The air recycler was working harder than usual, processing the smoke and heat from weapons fire. The station was fighting for its life. Kim Dae felt something changing inside him. The crystals Dr. Park Soo-jin had discovered were affecting him somehow. His reflexes became faster, his senses sharper. The station's systems responded to his thoughts as if he was directly connected to the computer network. The Krell soldiers began to whisper about human ghosts and ancient curses. They were veteran warriors who had conquered dozens of colonies, but they had never faced anything like this. The station itself seemed alive and hostile, turning their own weapons against them. Captain Li Wan tried to contact Earth Command, but the communication system was jammed. The Krell ships were blocking all signals, making sure no distress call could escape. The 12 people on Eco 7 were truly alone with no hope of rescue. The mining robots in the asteroid field began acting strangely. They stopped their work and turned toward the station as if something was calling them. Their simple computer brains were receiving new instructions from an unknown source. The dead rocks around them started to glow with faint light. Dr. Park Soo-jin made a breakthrough in her lab. The crystals were not just alien technology, they were connected to something much larger. The energy readings showed a vast network extending throughout the asteroid field and beyond. These rocks were not random, they were part of a system Kim Dae eliminated another group of Krell soldiers using. The station's blast doors as weapons, the heavy barriers could crush armor. Like tin cans when they closed at full speed, the aliens tried to retreat but found their escape routes sealed by the station's computer commander. Vexstar grew angry as more of his troops disappeared without trace. His sensors showed impossible energy readings coming from the human station. The power levels were higher than some starships, but that was impossible for a simple mining outpost. The artificial intelligence that ran Eco 7 was not really artificial anymore. Something ancient and powerful was awakening inside the computer network. The station systems were evolving, becoming something more than human technology. The old mining outpost was revealing its true nature. Kim Dae felt the change spreading through his body and mind. He was still human, but he was becoming something more. The crystals were amplifying his natural abilities, turning a skilled soldier into something far more dangerous. The guardian of Earth's forgotten outpost was finally awakening. Remaining Krell soldiers found themselves trapped in a shrinking area of the station. The corridors behind them had sealed, while the paths ahead led only to death. Kim Dae's voice echoed through the speakers, speaking in perfect Krell language. "You came here thinking we were weak," he said calmly. "You thought 12 humans would be easy prey. You were wrong. This station has been waiting for you. The trap is closing and there is no escape." Dr. Park Soo-jin realized the truth about the asteroid field. They were not mining ordinary rocks, they were living on top of an ancient defense system. The crystals were part of a network built by a civilization that had vanished long ago. The system had been dormant, waiting for the right threat to activate it. The Krell tried to retreat to their boarding pods, but found the docking bays sealed. Kim Dae had taken control of every system on the station, turning their own entry points into prisons. The aliens were trapped with a human who had become something beyond their understanding. Commander Vexstar made a desperate decision. If his troops could not take the station from inside, he would destroy it from outside. The Krell Empire's reputation was at stake. No human could be allowed to defeat their finest warriors. He ordered his ships to charge their main weapons. But as the alien weapons powered up, Kim Dae felt the ancient power flowing through the station reach its full strength. The crystals throughout the asteroid field began to sing in harmony. The mining outpost was about to reveal what it really was. The quiet soldier who had counted days until his transfer was gone. In his place stood something that the Krell Empire had never faced before. The guardian of humanity's children was awake, and the real battle was about to begin. The ancient power flowing through Station Eco 7 reached Kim Dae like lightning through his bones. He could feel every vibration in the station's hull, every whisper of air through the ventilation systems. The crystals Dr. Park Soo-jin had discovered were singing in harmony with his heartbeat, amplifying his human abilities beyond normal limits. Commander Vexstar's flagship began charging its primary weapon, a massive plasma cannon designed to crack planets in half. "If we cannot take this station intact, we will make an example of it," he declared to his crew. "Let every human colony know what happens when they resist the Krell Empire." The other ships in his fleet moved into attack formation, ready to reduce Eco 7 to glowing space dust. But Kim Dae was no longer just defending a mining station. The crystal network beneath the asteroid field had been waiting for thousands of years for someone worthy to activate its true power. Dr. Park Soo-jin watched in amazement as her laboratory equipment registered impossible energy readings. The crystals were not just glowing now, they were reshaping themselves, forming new patterns and connections. "This is not human technology," she whispered to herself. "This is something much older, much more powerful." The remaining Krell soldiers inside the station felt the change first. The metal corridors began to shift and move like living tissue. Walls that had been solid moments before became transparent, revealing flowing energy beneath. Some aliens tried to retreat to their boarding pods, but the station sealed all exits. Kim Dae's voice echoed through the speakers, calm but deadly. "You came here thinking we were weak," he said in perfect Krell language. "You thought 12 humans on a forgotten outpost would be easy prey, but you made one mistake. You threatened my people, the Alien soldiers looked around in growing terror as the station's defenses came online completely. The old rusty walls were transforming, revealing technology that had been hidden. For centuries, what they thought was a simple mining outpost was actually something far more. Dangerous Captain Liuan and the mining crew felt the station shudder as massive changes occurred throughout its structure. The narrow corridors were becoming wider, and more complex new rooms appeared where none had existed before. "What is happening?" Engineer Nam Hoseok asked. "How is Kim Dae doing all this?" They had no idea their quiet security officer was connected to power beyond human understanding. The crystal network extended far beyond just Eco 7. It connected to similar installations throughout this part of the galaxy, all built by the same ancient civilization that had vanished long ago. As Kim Dae's consciousness expanded through the network, he could sense other human colonies under attack by the Krell Empire. His protective instinct grew stronger, fueled by the knowledge that Earth's children were in danger across the stars. The ancient power recognized this quality in him. Commander Vexstar fired his main weapon at the station, confident that nothing could survive such destruction. The plasma beam struck Eco 7's position and exploded in brilliant light. For a moment, the Krell fleet celebrated their victory, then the light faded, and the station was still there. A shimmering energy shield surrounded Eco 7, making space itself bend and twist around the station. The most powerful weapon in the Krell arsenal had been stopped completely. Commander Vexstar stared at his sensors, unable to believe what he was seeing. Kim Dae stood in the station's command center, his body glowing with the same energy as the crystals. He was still human, but he had become something more, a guardian chosen by ancient power to protect life against those who would destroy it. Through the crystal network, he could see the Krell fleet clearly. The station began to change, shape growing larger and more complex. Hidden sections that had been dormant for thousands of years came online. Weapon systems that made human technology look like toys extended from the asteroid's surface. The mining outpost was revealing its true nature. Dr. Park Sujin realized she was witnessing something incredible. "The asteroids we have been mining," she said to herself. "They are not natural. This whole field is artificial, built around the station. We have been living inside an ancient defense network this whole time." Her research data suddenly made sense. Every strange crystal and impossible metal was part of a vast machine designed to protect life. The ancient builders had created a network of hidden fortresses throughout the galaxy, waiting for the right threat to reveal themselves. The surviving Krell soldiers inside the station faced a choice: surrender or face Kim Dae's wrath. But the Guardian was no longer interested in taking prisoners. These aliens had come to enslave and destroy. They represented everything the ancient builders had fought against. Through the crystal network's power, Kim Dae became their judgment and their executioner. The station's corridors filled with energy that dissolved Krell armor like acid. Their screams echoed through the transformed hallways before fading to silence. Captain Lee Won opened the safe room door and gasped at what he saw. The narrow metal corridors had become magnificent crystal passages that pulsed with flowing light. The old mining station was gone, replaced by something that looked like it belonged in an advanced civilization. Engineer Nam Hoseok touched one of the crystal walls and immediately understood. "This is not human technology," he said in wonder. "This is what the galaxy was like before we existed, before the Krell existed. This is from the people who came before everyone else." The walls responded to his touch, showing him visions of the ancient builders. They had been a peaceful race that created these defenses before vanishing into legend. Their final gift to the galaxy was this network of guardian stations protecting life against species like the Krell. Commander Vexstar watched his fleet's sensors go wild. The energy readings were impossible, higher than a star-going supernova retreat, he ordered, but his ships were already trapped. The crystal network had extended invisible fields around the entire area, preventing any escape. Kim Dae reached out through the network and began his counterattack. The first wave of ancient weapons fired at the Krell fleet with precision that made their targeting computers look primitive. Each shot was perfectly calculated, designed not to destroy, but to disable. The Krell vessels found their weapons offline, their engines dead, their shields failing, but they were not completely helpless. Commander Vexstar activated his fleet's most desperate weapon, a reality bomb that could tear holes in space itself. If We cannot win, then no one will survive this battle, he roared, pressing the activation sequence. The weapon was designed to destroy everything within several light years, including the Krell fleet itself. It was the ultimate act of spite. Kim Day felt the weapon charging and smiled with ancient wisdom. The Crystal Network had dealt with reality bombs before. As the Krell weapon fired, the ancient defenses simply absorbed the energy and converted it into more power for the Guardian. What should have destroyed the solar system instead made Kim Day stronger than ever. The reality bomb's energy flowed through the Crystal Network like food for a hungry animal. The ancient builders had designed their defenses to turn any attack into more strength through the network. Kim Day could see the bigger picture. The Krell Empire had been expanding across this part of the galaxy for decades, enslaving or destroying every species they encountered. They had wiped out entire civilizations and turned star systems into graveyards. The ancient builders had created their network to prevent exactly this kind of genocide. Their technology had been quietly studying different species for millions of years, testing which ones were worthy of protection. The results for humanity were clear. Dr. Park Soo-jin accessed the station's new computer systems and discovered the truth about Earth's expansion into space. Humanity had not randomly chosen their colony locations. They had been subtly guided to planets and asteroid fields that contained pieces of the ancient network. The crystal technology had been quietly watching humans for generations, learning about their nature, testing whether they protected their weak, whether they chose cooperation over conquest. The test results showed humanity was worthy of the ancient gift. Unlike the Krell, humans built communities that included different species they chose to help rather than harm. They protected those who could not protect themselves. The ancient network had found in humanity the inheritors it had been waiting for. Captain Lee One and his crew watched through the station's new viewing ports as the Krell fleet was systematically disabled. One by one, the alien ships went dark, their crews trapped but alive. The Guardian's justice was precise and merciful. Those who had committed genocide would face trial, while ordinary soldiers who had simply followed orders would be given the chance to choose a different path. Kim Day's humanity remained strong, even with godlike power flowing through him. Kim Day felt the presence of other Guardians awakening across the galaxy on distant worlds where humans had settled. Other ordinary people were connecting to the ancient network, teachers, farmers, mechanics, and soldiers, all united by the desire to protect others. The age of Krell expansion was ending, and the age of protected peace was beginning, but the battle at Eco 7 was not over. Commander Vexstar had one final card to play, a signal racing across space at faster than light speed. The message reached the Krell home fleet, calling for reinforcements that would dwarf the current forces. As thousands of new ships prepared to jump to hyperspace, Kim Day prepared for the greatest test of the ancient network's power. The real war was about to begin. The space around Station Echo 7 rippled like water as reality itself bent to the ancient technology's will. Kim Day stood at the center of the command room. His consciousness expanded across light years through the crystal network. He could feel every Krell ship, every weapon charging, every alien heart beating with fear. The asteroid field that surrounded Eco 7 began to move with purpose. What the humans had thought were random space rocks were actually massive defense platforms dormant for thousands of years. They awakened at Kim Day's silent command, their surfaces splitting open to reveal weapons that could crack moons. The mining station had been built as bait, waiting for the right threat to trigger the ancient defenses. The Krell Empire had walked into a trap that had been set before their species even existed. The Guardians who built this network had faced similar enemies before. Commander Vexstar watched in horror as his fleet's sensors registered impossible readings. The energy levels were higher than a star-going supernova. Retreat, he ordered again, but his ships were already caught like insects in a web. The crystal network had extended invisible fields around the entire area. Dr. Park Soo-jin felt the station's transformation through her laboratory equipment. The crystals she had studied were connected to every part of the ancient network, carrying information and energy at speeds that defied physics. Kim Day, she whispered, somehow knowing he could hear her. What have you become? His voice answered directly in her mind, calm but filled with cosmic awareness. I'm what I always was, Dr. Parker, Guardian, but now I have the tools to guard more than just 12 people through the crystal link. She could See what he saw. The vast network of ancient defenses scattered across the galaxy was awakening to protect life. Against the Krell threat, humanity had stumbled upon the galaxy's oldest and most powerful security system. The builders had left behind the ultimate gift for worthy species. The mining crew felt the station's gravity shift as massive structural changes occurred around them. Captain Li Wan opened the safe room door and gasped at what he saw. The corridors had become living art with crystalline walls that pulsed with flowing energy. The old mining station was gone, replaced by something that looked like it belonged at the center of a cosmic civilization. Engineer Nam Hoseok touched one of the crystal walls and immediately understood. "This is not human technology," he said in wonder. "This is what the galaxy was like before we existed, before the Krell existed. This is from the people who came before everyone else." The walls responded to his touch, showing him visions of the ancient builders, a peaceful race that had created these defenses before vanishing into legend. Kim Dae reached out through the network and began his counterattack. The first wave of ancient weapons fired at the Krell fleet with precision that made their targeting computers look primitive. Each shot was perfectly calculated, designed not to destroy, but to disable. The Krell vessels found their weapons offline, their engines dead, their shields failing. But they were not defenseless. Commander Vexstar activated his fleet's most desperate weapon, a reality bomb that could tear holes in space itself. "If we cannot win, then no one will survive this battle," he roared, pressing the activation sequence. The weapon was designed to collapse entire sections of spacetime, turning everything within light years into a black hole of destruction. Kim Dae felt the weapon charging and smiled with ancient wisdom. The crystal network had dealt with reality bombs before. As the Krell weapon fired, the ancient defenses simply absorbed the energy and converted it into more power for the Guardian. What should have destroyed the solar system instead made Kim Dae stronger than ever. The reality bomb's energy flowed through the crystal network like fuel for a cosmic engine. The ancient builders had designed their technology to turn any attack into additional strength through the network. Kim Dae could see the bigger picture. The Krell Empire had been expanding across this part of the galaxy for decades, enslaving or destroying every species they encountered. They had wiped out entire civilizations, burned peaceful worlds, and turned star systems into graveyards. The ancient builders had created their network to prevent exactly this kind of genocide. Their technology had been quietly studying different species for millions of years, testing which ones were worthy of protection. The results for humanity were overwhelmingly positive. Dr. Park Soo-jin accessed the station's new computer systems and discovered the truth about Earth's expansion into space. Humanity had not randomly chosen their colony locations. They had been subtly guided to planets and asteroid fields that contained pieces of the ancient network. The crystal technology had been watching humans for generations, learning about their nature, testing whether they protected their weak, whether they chose cooperation over conquest, whether they built communities that included different species. The test results were clear. Unlike the Krell, humans protected those who could not protect themselves. They chose to help rather than harm. They built societies based on cooperation rather than domination. The ancient network had found worthy inheritors. Captain Li Wan and his crew watched through the station's new viewing ports as the Krell fleet was systematically disabled. One by one, the alien ships went dark, their crews trapped but alive. The Guardian's justice was precise and merciful. Those who had committed genocide would face trial, while ordinary soldiers who had simply followed orders would be given the chance to choose a different path. Kim Dae's humanity remained strong, even with godlike power flowing through him. Kim Dae felt the presence of other Guardians awakening across the galaxy. On distant worlds where humans had settled, other ordinary people were connecting to the ancient network. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, and soldiers, all united by the simple desire to protect those they cared about. The age of Krell expansion was ending, and the age of protected peace was beginning. The network that had slept for millennia was fully awake, now ready to defend life wherever it flourished. The galaxy's greatest guardians had chosen humanity as their successors, but the battle at Eco 7 was not over. Commander Vexstar had one final card to play, a signal that had been racing across space at faster than light speed. The message reached the Krell home fleet calling for reinforcements that would dwarf his current forces. Emperor Krexthul himself was coming with the full might of the Krell Empire. 300 warships led by the massive dreadnought Star Crusher. The Emperor had not lost a battle in 50 years of conquest, and he refused to let a single human outpost destroy his empire's reputation. The new fleet's combined firepower could glass entire planets, and their arrival would test the ancient network's power to its absolute limits. Kim Day felt them coming through the crystal connection and prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. As the reinforcement fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Kim Day made a promise to the ancient builders, whose technology flowed through him. The Krell had threatened humanity's children, and that was a mistake they would not survive. The guardian of Earth's forgotten outpost was ready to show the galaxy what happened when an unstoppable force met an unmovable object. The real war was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same. Through the crystal network, Kim Day could feel the hopes and fears of billions of beings across the galaxy. All of them were counting on him, whether they knew it or not. The ancient power that flowed through his human form was the last line of defense between life and extinction. Emperor's fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal and fury, but they were facing something that had been waiting for them since before their species existed. The trap was complete, and the hunters had become the hunted. The Krell reinforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal and fury. 300 warships led by Emperor Krexthul himself aboard the massive dreadnought Star Crusher. The Emperor had not lost a battle in 50 years of conquest, and he refused to let a single human outpost destroy his empire's reputation. The fleet's combined firepower could glass entire planets and reduce star systems to cosmic dust. Emperor Krexthul was the most feared being in this part of the galaxy, a four-armed monster who had personally killed millions of innocents. His flagship alone was larger than most space stations. Kim Day felt their arrival through the crystal network. Moments before their ships appeared, the ancient technology showed him exactly what was coming: not just ships and weapons, but the burning hatred of a species that had built its entire culture on domination and death. The Krell could not accept that anyone might be stronger than them, especially not the humans they considered inferior. Emperor Krexthul looked at the readings from Eco 7 and refused to believe them. Impossible, he roared, his forearms slamming against his command throne. No human technology can generate this much power. They must be using some kind of trick, some illusion to make us afraid. But his sensors told the truth. The energy signature from the ancient network was larger than his entire fleet combined. Dr. Park Soo-jin worked frantically in her transformed laboratory, trying to understand the full scope of what was happening. Through the crystal interface, she could access knowledge from the ancient builders. They had faced a threat like the Krell before. The builders had encountered a species so consumed with conquest that they had nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy. The network had been their final gift to future generations, a way to ensure that such evil could never triumph again. The mining crew gathered in what used to be the station's common area, now a magnificent crystal chamber that showed them views of space in all directions. They watched the massive Krell fleet arrange itself for attack like a cloud of death blocking out the stars. Can Kim Day really stop all of them? Engineer Nam Ho-seok asked the question everyone was thinking. Captain Liu Wan looked at the energy flowing through the walls around them and nodded slowly. I do not think Kim Day is just one person anymore. He was right. The Guardian had evolved beyond his human limitations through the crystal network. Kim Day existed simultaneously at Eco 7 and at hundreds of other defense nodes across the galaxy. He was becoming what the ancient builders had planned for, a living symbol of protection that could coordinate defenses on a galactic scale. The consciousness that had once been a quiet soldier was now something that could think on cosmic scales while still caring about individual lives. Emperor Krexthul deployed his fleet in a massive sphere around the asteroid field, planning to attack from every direction at once. His ships were armed with planet-killer weapons, gravity bombs, and reality-shearing devices that had crushed every enemy the Krell had ever faced. Begin the bombardment, he commanded. I want that system reduced to atoms. No trace of human presence must remain to inspire others to resist our rule. The Emperor's hatred for humans ran deeper than military necessity. It was personal now. The attack that followed was like watching 1,000 suns explode at once. The combined firepower of 300 Krell warships struck the ancient defenses with enough energy to sterilize entire star system. Space itself caught fire as reality twisted under the assault. Any normal defense would have been vaporized instantly. But the crystal network had been designed by beings who understood forces beyond physical matter. As the Krell weapons struck, the ancient technology did not just absorb the energy, it learned from it, analyzed it, and began producing countermeasures. Each shot made the defenses stronger, each attack revealed new weaknesses in the enemy fleet. The network was turning the Krell's own power against them. Kim Day stood calmly in the center of the storm, his human form glowing with power that connected him to the very structure of spacetime through his enhanced awareness. He could see the fear growing in the Krell crews as their most powerful weapons failed completely. Their empire had been built on the belief that overwhelming force could solve any problem, but they were facing something that turned force into strength, turned hatred into protection. The more they attacked, the stronger their enemy became. The counterattack began with surgical precision instead of matching the Krell's brutal assault. The ancient weapons targeted specific systems on each enemy ship. Engines failed, weapons overloaded, life support systems malfunctioned. The Emperor's fleet found themselves helpless, floating in space as their technology turned against them. The ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now just metal coffins drifting in the void. Park Soo-jin discovered something wonderful in the ancient database. The crystal network was not just a weapon system, it was a teaching tool. Every species that had ever threatened galactic peace had eventually been shown a better way to live. The builders believed that even the most violent civilizations could change if given the right guidance and limitations, but they also knew that some leaders were too corrupt to save and must be removed for the greater good. Emperor Krexthal was not interested in learning. As his fleet disabled itself around him, he activated the Krell Empire's ultimate weapon, a device that could collapse entire star systems into black holes. If I cannot rule this galaxy, then no one will, he screamed, his mind broken by the first real defeat of his career. The device was built into his flagship, requiring the Emperor's personal codes to activate. Kim Day felt the weapon charging and made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. Instead of simply stopping the Emperor's attack, he opened the communication channel to every Krell ship, every Krell world, every member of their species. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of the ancient network and the compassion of humanity combined. Your Emperor would destroy billions of lives because he cannot accept defeat. You have followed him in conquest and destruction for generations, but today you have a choice. You can die with him, or you can learn to live in peace with the rest of the galaxy. The response was immediate across the Krell fleet. Crew members began to mutiny against their officers on Krell worlds. Citizens rose up against the military government that had led them into endless war. The ancient network's influence spread through their technology, showing them visions of what their civilization could become if they chose cooperation over conquest. Krell people saw themselves as they truly were, not a master race destined to rule, but a species that had been led astray by leaders who valued power over life. They saw what they could become if they learned to build instead of destroy. Emperor Krexthal found himself alone on his flagship as his own crew abandoned him. The Star Crusher's ultimate weapon powered down as the ship's engineers chose peace over annihilation. They had seen through the crystal network what their empire had really accomplished. Countless worlds burned, entire species, extinct children crying for parents who would never come home. The Krell realized they had become the very evil their ancestors had once fought against. Through the crystal network, Kim Day offered the Emperor the same choice. He had given everyone else change or face judgment, but the old ruler's mind was too twisted by hatred and pride to accept mercy. Krexthal looked out at his paralyzed fleet and realized that his empire was ending. His life's work of conquest and domination was crumbling in a single day, but instead of accepting defeat gracefully, he made one final desperate decision. The Emperor activated a device implanted in his own body, a quantum bomb that would tear a hole through the dimensions themselves. If he could not rule the galaxy, he would drag it into the void between realities. His death would be the galaxy's death, making him the ultimate conqueror through destruction. The bomb would create a cascade reaction that could unravel the very fabric of existence across multiple universes. Kim Day felt the dimensional weapon-building energy within the Emperor's body and realized the scope of the threat. This was not just about one solar system or even one galaxy, billions of civilizations across multiple universes would be the ancient network offered him. Ultimate power enough to stop the bomb and prevent any similar threat from ever arising again. But using that much power would transform him completely, burning away his humanity forever. He would become a god of protection, eternal and alone, watching over the galaxy, but no longer truly part of it. The choice between saving everything and remaining human was the hardest decision any guardian had ever faced. Emperor Krexthal stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, his empire crumbling around him as his own people chose peace over his endless wars. Through the viewing ports he could see Krell ships surrendering to the ancient network's influence, their crews ready to learn a different way of living. The Emperor's forearms trembled with rage as 50 years of conquest collapsed in a single day. Unlike his people, who were capable of change, Krexthal had become something that could only destroy. His mind was too twisted by violence and hatred to imagine existence without domination. Kim Day felt the Emperor's consciousness through the crystal network, a being so consumed with evil that redemption was impossible. The Guardian faced a choice that would define not just this battle, but the future of galactic peace. Dr. Park Soo-jin accessed the ancient builders' records and discovered their greatest tragedy when they had faced a similar threat. Eons ago, they had chosen mercy for their enemies. Leader, that single act of compassion had allowed evil to survive and rebuild. The corrupted leader had eventually returned with new weapons and darker purpose, leading to the builder's own extinction. The crystal network had been programmed to never make that mistake again. Some beings were beyond saving and must be stopped permanently. The mining crew of Echo 7 watched through the station's crystal walls as the last Krell holdouts laid down their weapons. Engineer Nam Ho Seok wiped tears from his eyes as he saw former enemies embracing each other, their programming of hatred broken by the network's influence. It is beautiful, he whispered. They are becoming who they were meant to be. Captain Lee Wan nodded, watching as Krell soldiers helped repair the ships they had damaged. The transformation from conquerors to builders was happening across the entire fleet, but Emperor Krexthal had one final weapon himself. The Krell leader activated a device implanted in his own body, a quantum bomb that would tear a hole through the dimensions themselves. If he could not rule the galaxy, he would drag it into nothingness. His death would be the galaxy's death, making him the ultimate conqueror through destruction. The quantum bomb would create a cascade reaction that could unravel the very fabric of existence across multiple universes. Billions of civilizations would cease to exist. Kim Day felt the dimensional weapon-building energy within the Emperor's body and realized the scope of the threat. This was not just about one solar system or even one galaxy. The quantum explosion would tear holes between realities, destroying everything the ancient network offered. Kim Day ultimate power enough to stop the bomb, imprison the Emperor, and prevent any similar threat from ever arising again. But using that much power would transform him completely, burning away his humanity forever. He would become a god of protection, eternal and alone, watching over the galaxy, but no longer truly part of it. The choice between saving everything and remaining human was the hardest decision any guardian had ever faced. Through the crystal link, Kim Day felt the presence of his fellow humans, Dr. Park Soo-jin working tirelessly in her lab, Captain Lee Wan trying to understand the magnitude of what was happening, the mining crew supporting each other through fear and wonder. Their simple human emotions, love, friendship, determination, were what had awakened the ancient network in the first place. The builders had created their technology to protect life, but it took human hearts to make it truly alive. Kim Day, Dr. Park Soo-jin's voice reached him through the crystal connection. Whatever you are thinking of doing, remember that we need you to stay human. The